Over the years, many sightings of UFOs have been reported. There's even a considerable amount of alien encounters and alien abduction cases that have been reported and studied. However, rarely do reports come in where individuals collide with these unknown objects. Today's story is truly remarkable in that there exists various physical evidence. As reported by the CSX engineer on board that train that day, on January 14th, 2002, at 2:47 a.m., a coal train in transit from Russell, Kentucky to Shelbyana, Kentucky, collided with an unknown hovering object. The object was described as 10 feet high and about 20 feet in length. It was a metallic looking disc with multiple colored lights near the bottom and in the middle. There were no windows or openings of any kind. As the engineer described it, both the trailing unit and the first two cars were severely damaged. He knew it was 2:47 because his watch froze, and to this day, the watch shows that time. Along with his watch, the entire electrical systems on both locomotives went haywire. Approaching a bend near milepost 42, in an area referred to as the Wild Kingdom for the many different types of animals spotted there, the conductor and the engineer saw lights coming from around the way. Ordinarily, this means another train is coming and will soon pass on the other track. As the engineer killed the lights as to not blind the oncoming crew, they rounded the corner and their onboard computer began to flash in and out. The speed recorder went nuts, and both locomotives died. Alarm bells began to ring, and then that's when the engineer and the conductor saw the objects. Apparently, they were scanning the river for something. At least three objects had several searchlights trained there. The first object hovered about 10 to 12 feet above the track. It was metallic silver in color. There were no windows or openings, and it was about 18 to 20 feet in length and probably 10 feet high. With both engines dead, as they rounded the corner, they made little noise, and the first object did not respond in time. The engineer estimated that they hit the object at 30 miles per hour, with 16,000 trailing tons behind them. It clipped the top of their lead unit and then skipped back, slicing a chunk out of the trailing unit and the first two coal cars. At this point, the other objects vanished. The emergency brakes then initiated due to the loss of power, and they stopped approximately a mile and a half to 2 miles after impact. The power restored after they were stopped, and the men notified their dispatcher, located in Jacksonville, Florida, of what had happened. They were told to inspect the cars to see if they'd hold the rail and try to limp into milepost 60, which used to be the Paintsville yard, which is no longer in full service. As they checked everything, the cab of the rear locomotive was demolished and smoking. The second two cars looked as they had been hit with a giant hammer, but they looked like they'd hold the rail. As the men pulled into Paintsville Yard at approximately 5:15 a.m., the huge overhead lights lining the yard were noticeably dark, and the only lights came from what they assumed were railroad officials parked near the end of the track. They pulled to a stop and began unloading the grips off the wounded train. Then they could hear what sounded like an army of workers immediately tending to the train. Vehicle doors slamming, guys running by in weird outfits, and lights glaring from all directions. The one thing missing from this picture was the railroad officials. A guy named Ferguson shook the engineer's hand and asked him to follow into the old yard office. As they did, once inside, the men were clueless who was questioning them. As hundreds of questions were being asked, they told the men, for their own protection, they'd be medically tested before they could leave. The engineer asked repeatedly to talk to his road foreman or train master, and not only were these requests denied, but they confiscated the conductor's cellular phone. Hours later, they were led outside the old yard office, and strange things continued to happen. The 2 locomotives and 2 cars were removed from the rest of the train. Parked 4 tracks over under a huge tent, it was buzzing with activity. The men didn't see too much around this, but were led off the property and told, due to national security, their silence on this matter would be appreciated. They were put in a railroad vehicle and taken to Martin, Kentucky, where they went through questioning again with railroad officials and were then drug tested. After all of this, they were sent on to Shelbyana, where they rested for about 8 hours and worked another train back to Russell. Working back, the men passed by Paintsville with no sign of the engines, cars, tent, people. It's as if nothing had ever happened. As the story has circulated the internet, there have been many that claimed that this never happened. For one, there doesn't appear to be any additional eyewitnesses and no reports of strange activity from locals on that night. Also, many point out it seems unlikely that a UFO, with the advanced technology it possesses, would collide with a train. Still, others are not so sure. The most famous UFO incident in modern history was a UFO crash at Roswell, New Mexico, so there is a precedent for these crafts crashing. Also, if the witness had lied about the story, then why would he do so? The engineer, if he didn't provide his name or information, wouldn't be able to benefit either financially or through the press. This story was reported to MUFON, and it seems to me the person might just be looking for answers to what happened that night.